here we are on a Skype call with Timothy Clayton, who was at the Syzygy Design Charrette about 1 week ago. And I'd like to ask you some interview questions, Timothy. How does that sound?
That sounds great.
Great, thanks. In your words, what was the Syzygy Design Charrette?
Well, it was an event that was held for people who share sustainable and regenerative principles to come together and be facilitated through a process where they could start to explore and possibly even invest in some next steps to bring those enterprises about, to manifest them.
And what was your role at the event?
Well, I had some pre-planning, pre-collaboration with Gregory initially as part of my applied leadership project with Naropa University. And beyond that, in terms of my participation, a lot of what I was doing was just kind of witnessing what was going on. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to stay around for the entire event because of my curriculum and another class that I had. But yeah, I think basically I was there witnessing and sort of taking notes to incorporate that and integrate it with my applied leadership project report.
Thank you. As someone who has sort of witnessed the evolution of this charrette from the start, overall, what did you understand my role to be in the Syzygy Design Charrette?
Well, I think you were kind of the spark plug for the entire thing. We had started with discussions about this kind of, energy farm, and that seemed initially what everybody was being brought together to sort of discuss and design. I mean, you were the client. But then in another role, there's this person, this title, I don't know what it's called, but it's somebody who sets up the orchestra and the symphony.
The impresario?
Impresario, yeah, there was kind of that element too, of being an impresario.
Great. In what ways do you think that the Syzygy Design Charrette provided an opportunity for my action learning and skill building?
Well, it was live and it was interactive. It's very much action learning oriented. Can you explain a little bit more about action learning as you understand it?
Well, action learning being the purpose of my work at Gaia University is to document my ongoing action learning in life. So the projects that I'm involved in real life. So it's like real life learning as opposed to strictly academic learning, sort of and bridging those two worlds.
Yeah. Well, I think it contributed an immense amount. I mean, the whole process was around generating or actually refining the details of regenerative enterprise and coming up with next steps, real world kind of stuff. Not just putting together a document or a paper about, somebody should do this, this was a good idea, but it's actually generating next steps and possibilities.
Well, how might have the event contributed to my personal and or my professional development?
Well, I think there was community being built on the personal development level there. People with shared principles working together, trying to generate some next steps for some really powerful regenerative business ecology, I believe was the term that was thrown around quite a bit. I think just interacting in a face-to-face way and having a group of people and support. There was the documentation team, there was these group leaders. I think that was a very professional sort of atmosphere, particularly with the level of technology that was used and integrated into the process.
How do you see, or how do you think that the Syzygy Design Charrette could benefit others or add value to their work?
Well, I think it's actually a pretty powerful process. I get the sense, I've thought this for a couple of years now, that there are people out there who have resources to be able to develop regenerative enterprises. But I think the key piece that's missing is this kind of process of collaboration where you can bring the different resources, capabilities, you might even say the 8 forms of capital together in a room for an extended period of time and explore exactly what the goals are, how the resources weave together and support each other, and how ultimately they lead to regenerative business enterprises. I think the design shred as a process, I think, is a pretty powerful process.
And that leads right into my next question, is how do you think the outcomes of the Syzygy design charrette might contribute to the fields of regenerative enterprise?
Dramatically. I really think it's a piece that's missing. The whole idea of collaboration, I don't want to get too philosophical, but the whole idea of collaboration is something that's kind of missing within our culture anyways. We're very individualistic, motivated and primed to explore our sort of self-interest. But the design charrette process is kind of a way to collaborate, and that to me is a big piece that's missing from people who share a principle and are interested in manifesting sustainable living.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I think the process is actually, to some extent, more important than the content.
Well, what resources or other tools did you and other participants at the Syzygy design charrette draw upon during the design process?
Well, I mentioned earlier the level of technology that was involved. That was really interesting. That's a pretty powerful resource and tool. I think the collaborative documentation is a really interesting concept, that everybody can sort of be logged into the same tool and adding content as they go through the documentation process. I was also drawing upon some inner work teachings that I've learned at Naropa about group dynamics, and the term they use is holding space, creating a comfortable container. I noticed also that ritual was integrated into the design charrette process, which I think was a really good and powerful grounding tool to have, and also very unifying with some of the exercises that we did. I know the term holopticism was thrown around quite a bit.
What is holopticism?
Holopticism is the idea of sort of a group consciousness. The example that's used to describe it is that of a basketball team, where when they kind of collectively get into a zone, everybody's just kind of doing what the group needs to be done. The sort of sense of like individualistic ego is kind of subverted, I would say, and this collective consciousness kind of takes over an activity. Another way to think about it, that I think about it, I don't know if this is 100% correct, is hearing like the whole symphony as opposed to one musician playing.
And so what? How would you optimize the chances for that happening? Then
I think one of the best things that we did for that, at least as I felt it internally, in the sort of state that came over me in a biological sense, was the exercise that Leora led. She gave the example of the flock of geese. Those embodied kind of exercises I like a lot more than say, well, let's read about it and then like, okay, that's an idea, so let's try and do it. I think the embodied exercises are a really powerful tool to sort of feel and sense what that's like.
So the embodied exercise that you're speaking of is where everyone stood together as a group and then took turns sort of shifting who is leading the group as like a flock of geese, right? That's the one?
Yeah, and the leader just kind of emerged from the pattern of movement that was happening. That nobody pointed and said, "Okay, you go." It was very like you knew when the leadership role was coming to you, and you also had a strange sense of knowing when to pass it on. So it was really nonverbal. Nobody was talking at all.
Well, thanks. That's great. That's an excellent example. What was your overall impression of the experience you had at the Syzygy Design Charrette?
Well, how personal can I talk about that in the interview? Because that's actually been something that I've been looking for a long time, is some kind of format or process by which people can collaborate to bring about sustainable practices. So for me, it was really powerful. It was like a culmination of a question that brought me going to Naropa over 2 years ago. So it was really interesting that I've had this idea or this interest a long time of like, how can we all get together who share these principles, and how can we collaborate to manifest them in reality? And that was part of what brought me to Naropa, and that was a big learning goal that I had. And so being involved in the charrette and seeing how it fit that question so well, it was a really powerful event for me. It was very healing too, the holistic nature of it, having everybody there engaged in ritual, the healthy food that was served, the sort of nature of the space, the community house. There's a lot of layers and a lot of components that really sort of struck a nice resonating tone.
Well, I appreciate you sharing with me in this interview on as personal a level as you choose. Thank you for that. As a last question, I would just ask if you have any other comments that you'd like to share about your experience at the event, or anything really.
Well, I think it was very inspiring, and it was also it had kind of a magical quality to it, and I don't quite know exactly how to explain that, but maybe it has something to do with going up into the mountains and getting out of the city and out of traffic and all the noise. But there was a real sense of peace, but also a tremendous amount of creative activity that was going on at the same time, which I thought was really interesting. I got a real sense of balance, and I was really impressed with the level of intelligence of the people that were involved, not only in the head, but also in the heart. It was really awesome, and I hope that there's a lot more of those.
Well, hopefully there will be, and hopefully you'll be invited. Yeah, it'd be great to connect with that after it's all said and done, and see where you go with your Naropa education, and where I go with the Gaia University education, and I'm certain that our paths will continue to intertwine in the future. So, thank you very much for helping at the charrette and being a part of this output packet too, Timothy.
Okay, thank you, Todd.